This is the second one, and we're working on the third book, and it should be out in August.
How does the message in the book resonate with what we're seeing going on today with race relations in the United States?
And I think many young people all over America, high school students, college students, but even elementary school students are reading the book. And they are able to associate the story, my involvement in the civil rights movement with what is happening in America today. It is teaching people the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. And this young man, Andrew Aydin, had the idea that we should do this book.
What gave you the idea to take the themes that the congressman's talking about, put it in a book, and have a target audience of young people?
Well, Congressman Lewis told me about another comic book called Martin Luther King and the Montgomery Story, and how it inspired him when he was a young activist. And I couldn't help but think, well, you know, that's just a Montgomery bus boycott. What about all you went through? Why don't you write a comic book? And so he said, yes, I'll do it, but only if you write it with me.
Okay, so you guys teamed up on it. So now looking at, like, for example, the Black Lives Matter movement, what do you think about how that compares to what happened during the Civil Rights Movement? What are the comparisons? What are the differences in your mind?
When we first got involved, before even going on a sit-in of the Freedom Ride, before in the march on Washington or march from Selma, we studied the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. And we accepted nonviolence as a way of life, as a way of living. And so the young people involved in the Black Lives Matter movement must understand, and many of these people are reading this book and using it as their guide.
Now, during the Democratic debate, not the last one, the one before, you guys probably saw it, they were asked, do all lives matter or do Black Lives Matter? And they didn't say all lives matter. They were focusing on the Black Lives Matter. What do you think about that? Do all lives matter? And what do you think when you don't hear a candidate for president saying all lives matter?
Well, I'm not going to get in a debate over whether Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. We all are living human beings, and we all matter.
What would you like to see done more from Congress? Both of you guys could chime in on this one. Like to see done by Congress in terms of race relations and kind of in the aftermath of, like, Ferguson, for example, or Baltimore. Anything else you'd like to see from the president?
Well, I'm not sure the president can do it, but I would love to see those of us in elected position, maybe including the president, encourage all of us to study the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. Not just protesters, but even police officers and law enforcement people should understand the significance of people coming together and engaging in dialogue. Thank you.
I saw a talk recently, I'm trying to remember the guy's name, but race relations expert. And he was talking about something along the lines of what you're saying, but taking it further and actually having people in the community pick the police officers and go through kind of a process of they're in the community without guns and kind of getting to know the community, and then they get to say, this person is good to represent us, this officer. Do you agree with something like that?
Yeah, well, there was a sheriff who came out of the movement. His name was Thomas Gilmore in rural Alabama. He was a non-violent sheriff. He never wore a gun. And the people respected him, just his very presence.